Okay, guys, this is Mr. Nolan doing your Hebrews, Phoenicians, and Nubians notes. For my students, that is 3D in your packet. I'm not sure where Mr. Grimsland has hidden that for his students. Here we go, without further ado. A little quick review here before we get started. We've talked about 4 River Valley civilizations so far in this unit. We've talked about Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China. There are 3 other civilizations that we need to talk about, and that is the Hebrews, the Phoenicians, and the Nubians. They develop a little bit later, okay, but they are also going to be contemporaries of our 4 River Valley civilizations. All right, so the Hebrews, another name for them would be the Israelites. They're from Israel. Okay, these are, when you guys think of Jewish people, this is what we're talking about. All right, the Hebrews. Also, the Hebrews are a religious group. So this is Judaism and the foundations of Judaism. So the Hebrews, we looked at their history as being the first 5 books of the Torah, or the Hebrew Bible. This can be found in the Old Testament. The Torah is the Hebrew Bible. That is their sacred text, their holy text. It's also the Old Testament, the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, for those of you Christians. Okay? It is believed that those documents are a history of the Hebrew people throughout their time. So they are viewed essentially as a primary document recounting their past. All right, the Hebrews are significant because they are our first monotheistic people. Okay, they are monotheism. Mono meaning one, so they believe in one God. They are your first people who believe in one God. Okay, they are founded by a guy named Abraham who has an agreement with God that his people will worship God, and in return they will be the chosen people. Abraham is the founder of the Hebrew religion. He is seen as the father of the Jewish religion. He's also seen as the father of 2 other religions who trace their roots back to Abraham. You're also going to see, tracing back to him, Christianity, which most of you, I assume, would know, and Islam. Okay, Muslims trace their roots back to Abraham as well. So Christians, Muslims, Jews all worship the same God. Something to keep in mind when we are talking about them. All right, also about the Hebrews. Eventually they're going to leave their initial home in Canaan or Palestine, think of modern-day Israel, and they're going to migrate to Egypt. Okay, they're driven there by a drought. And this leaves us with a vocab term that's going to come up multiple times throughout history, and that term is diaspora. And what the diaspora is, it's the spreading of the Jewish people. Okay, multiple different times we have the Jewish people expelled from their home of Israel and spread throughout the world. Okay, eventually, while they're in Egypt, they're going to be enslaved by the Egyptians. Okay, and the Exodus is when the Israelites flee Egypt under the leadership of Moses. So the book Exodus in the Bible is the tale of Moses, how he leads his people. Let my people go. The 12 plagues that he brings, parting the Red Sea, and then eventually, once Moses has led them into freedom, he is given the 10 Commandments by God on Mount Sinai. Now the Phoenicians are a group of city kingdoms along the Mediterranean Sea. They're going to develop under influence of Sumerian and Akkadian cultures of nearby Babylon. Okay, so they have some Babylonian influences, and they are notable for being our first sailors. Okay, they are our first sailors. They are going to sail throughout the Mediterranean Sea. They take goods along with them. They are the beginning of sea trade. Okay, they found many colonies throughout the Mediterranean on various islands. They interact with the Greeks eventually, and eventually they're going to settle in North Africa in a city known as Carthage, which is going to come back when we talk about the Romans. Okay, the Phoenicians' significant contributions and the real reasons you need to know them. This is the biggie here, the alphabet. Okay, they are our first ones to come up with a written alphabet where letters stand for symbols. Our alphabet, or letters stand for sounds. Our alphabet, what we say, what we write, is the phonetic alphabet. Okay, that alphabet was passed to the Greeks, who in turn passed it to the Romans. It became the root of Latin and eventually Germanic languages, and that's where we have our alphabet here. Okay, so their biggest contribution of the Phoenicians is the alphabet. You also need to know that they invented a purple dye known as indigo and made a lot of money selling it. And they also are first to do glass. They have a pantheistic religion. Now, Nubia, we don't know much about Nubia other than it existed. What we do know comes from Greek and Egyptian texts. Nubia is in Upper Egypt, and I need to remind you guys that the Nile River, when we think of upper versus lower, is backwards. Okay, the upper Nile is to the south. The lower Nile is to the north. And the reason for that, guys, is if you want to think about their perspective, there are a lot of mountains down here in what is modern-day Sudan at the source of the Nile. So as the Egyptians were seeing it, is we had at the beginning of the river, up high in the mountains, the river then flowed downhill to its lower parts where it was closer to sea level in the Mediterranean Sea. So that is how we get Upper Nile and Lower Nile. And that'll be all, but first a little bit of end credit music for you guys.